Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bad Luck Gamer, and we're back with another archetype dedication. This time, we're talking about the Herbalist, which is the healer's route to holistic medicines and natural medicines. This is a particularly interesting one, and even though we haven't hit the medic dedication yet, this one is kind of the counterpart in a sense that it allows you to access healing in a variety of other ways, and it makes it unique from the medic archetype dedication. One we'll get to hopefully soon. In fact, speaking on that, we've gone through a lot. G through H has been probably the longest stretch. After the next archetype dedication, though, we will be done with the G through H stretch, and the next phase of the tier list will come out. So hopefully you all join me for that. It's going to be an interesting one. But let's go ahead and get to the Herbalist dedication. All right, so for the Herbalist dedication, you need to be trained in nature, and you actually need a skill feat, natural medicine. Now, most classes get skill feats every even level, so you can easily pick up natural medicine before, while you're also picking up this dedication, especially if you're using the free archetype rule, which I recommend everyone does because it just makes the game better. But once you have those two prerequisites, you get access to the dedication. What the dedication gives you is you get basic alchemy benefits, which you get an advanced alchemy level based on the archetype, which can dictate how many or what level of items you can craft with infused reagents. Infused reagents are just kind of a material cost that you get every day, kind of like spell slots that you can use to make potions during your daily preparations. On top of that, you also actually get access to the alchemical crafting feat through picking up this dedication. So already this dedication has given us a new class feature, which is infused reagents, plus it gives you a skill feat, which is alchemical crafting. So already pretty good. Now, these items specifically are called herbal items, and they're any item with the healing trait plus antidote and anti-plague. And the Lost Omens travel guide introduced a new set of items called the alchemical plant items. These you can also use with your infused reagents. Now, you get a number of infused reagents equal to your level or half your level if you were not in the wilderness. Now, wilderness is pretty much any natural environment where plants and such can be easily found. Even a cave can be a natural environment where you can, of course, get these kind of components, though it is up to the GM what counts as a wilderness in this sense. Now, when you get the dedication, you get an advanced alchemy level of 1, and it does not increase until you pick up a later feat. So, for these free reagents, or these free potions that you can make at the beginning of the day, they can't be any higher than item level 1. And another thing about infused reagents is they only last for 24 hours, even after you make an item during your daily preparations. So they are not something that you can stockpile, it's something that you should be considering for your daily adventures. Granted, considering that it's a healing item, it's probably going to be Elixir of Life is going to be your most common one. So as you level up, you're going to get more and more of these level 1 potions that you can use. Granted, they will fall off, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, not only does this allow you to make potions, get a free feat, and all that other kind of stuff as well, but you become expert in nature. And you can use nature instead of crafting to craft herbal items. So if you are using actual components and spending downtime to craft items, you can use nature instead of crafting to craft any item that would count as a herbal item. And I should mention as well, you actually don't need to be trained in crafting to get the alchemical crafting feat from the basic alchemy benefits. Just so you know, nature will work for pretty much everything you need for this archetype. And one final thing, you can use healer's tools rather than alchemist tools for creating these herbal items, which is interesting. It's not a very big thing because the alchemist tool set is not that expensive, but I guess, it works. It benefits you in some small way at the very least. So overall, the Herbalist dedication just at base is really good, and even without investing any more in it, you can get a large supply of early Elixir of Life potions that you can use as necessary, but it does get better. The next feat up is fresh ingredients. Now, it requires that you're an expert in nature. I actually don't know why they have this prerequisite. as it's not necessary. It honestly, you have to be an expert in nature to get this feat anyway, so it just seems pointless. But here it is. This is also a skill feat, and as I've mentioned before in other archetype feat or dedications, skill archetype dedications count towards the 3 necessary before going into another multiclass. Meaning that with the Herbalist, you can actually multiclass out of Herbalist a lot faster than other archetype dedications, which is pretty interesting. What Fresh Ingredients does is when you're using the natural medicine feat, which is what you needed to become a herbalist in the first place, it allows you to, when you're treating wounds, to get a +2 circumstance bonus to that check, even without fresh ingredients. But if you are in a wilderness area or have access to fresh ingredients, however that may be, the bonus increases to +4. That means when you're treating wounds, this makes you better than most other characters that have medicine when it comes to dealing with them. So even a character who is very proficient in medicine and using medicine, your nature's medicine is going to be actually more proficient and even more so in a natural environment. So overall, this is a pretty good one. And for a skill feat, it's pretty solid, as there's a lot of times characters run out of things to get with their skill feats, especially with some of the classes like Investigator or Rogue. So this is just a very solid choice overall. The next feat actually comes from the Knights of Lastwall book, which added a bunch of feats to the game. Graveland's Herbalist requires that you're trained in religion, and it has an access of being a part of the Knights of Lastwall. Now, access is usually only required for, society play, but your GM may require this because it is at least in-game lore specific information. Just something to keep in mind, but overall access does not affect normal gameplay. So with this one, you actually learn how to make Lastwall soup, which I find very, very interesting. It's a very hearty soup with like lots of veggies and not raw meat, but like big chunks of meat in it. And not only that, but when you learn this recipe, it automatically levels with you. So at 10th level, you can make the improved version of the Lastwall soup that grants a +3 item bonus. And at 18th, you can make the even greater version that grants a +4 item bonus. And its nourishing properties grant you temp HP points that last up to 10 minutes after eating it. So, Lastwall soup, just so you guys can see what it does here. This is a soup. Now, I find this hilarious because the activation, which is essentially consuming the soup, and this does count as a consumable elixir, so even an alchemist can just like whip this up, which is hilarious, with quick alchemy. I find that hilarious. But when you activate it, which is you eat a whole thing of hearty soup in a minute, man, just imagining a character snarfing down a hearty bowl of like stew in a minute is hilarious. What it does is for an hour after consuming the bowl of soup, you gain +2 item bonus to stealth checks and stealth DCs against undead. And with the herbalist variation of it, you get when you consume the soup at the 18th level, you get 10 temp HP points that last up to 10 minutes after eating it. Which is very interesting, and in fact, these upgraded versions don't exist in the game normally, so you can just make better Lastwall soup than anyone. Granted, 10 temp HP for a level 18 item, even of a consumable, is really low. 10 HP does not do anything really at 18th level, so I wish they would make that at least 20. I would have even made it like 40 temp HP just to make it like really good. It only lasts for 10 minutes after you eat the soup anyway. So you literally have to like be going into a combat and have a minute to spare. Like there's so many situations where the temp HP just isn't going to be a factor. They could have bumped it up and it wouldn't have made that big of a deal. Regardless, this is a very interesting addition to the Herbalist thanks to the Knights of Lastwall. Next up is going to probably be the best feat when it comes to being any kind of healer in the game as far as R-type dedications are concerned, and that is called Pulchs Preparation. So with Pulchs Preparation, what it does is when you craft your items using the Herbalist dedication, and I don't even think it actually requires it. Let's see here. It does have to be a herbal elixir. So when you craft a herbal elixir, you can turn it into a poultice. This gives it the oil trait, which means it doesn't need to be ingested, but it does lose the elixir and ingested traits. You can also apply the poultice by interacting with one hand. When you apply the poultice, in addition to the item's normal effects, the recipient can attempt to immediately make a flat check to recover from a single source a persistent acid, bleed, or fire damage, with the DC reduction from appropriate assistance. This is absolutely huge. Now, it is interesting because it says when you create an herbal elixir. So I don't know if this counts for your advanced alchemy when you're using infused reagents during the day, because you can only make herbal items. Actually, does it say herbal items with... Oh, it doesn't actually say herbal elixirs. Oh, I'm getting this confused with alchemists. So yeah, this is actually really good because with your infused reagents, you can make all your, potions of life into poultices. This means that even allies that are suffering from the sickened condition can benefit from these poultices, and reducing the DC and making it easier to get past acid, bleed, and fire damage, which are the most common types of persistent damage in the game. Poultices are just absolutely amazing. You should stock up on these and have plenty of these ready, because even just the effect of removing a persistent damage effect easily is really good. And considering the fact that the ally gets the DC reduction for appropriate assistance, I mean, that can make it even like a DC 10 or lower. Overall, Pulchs Preparation is probably one of the best healing feats in the game. All right, next up we have Endemic Herbs, and this is one I really don't particularly like, though I do see the benefits of it, and it's only a level 6 feat, so it's not anything real major. You could pass this feat and probably not miss anything too important, but in order to use this particular feat, you need to be trained in survival, and what it does is you use during your daily preparations when you're making your items for the day using your advanced alchemy level, you can spend an additional batch of reagents to add an additional benefit to the item. So for instance, you could spend 2 batches on a minor elixir of life and then give it one of the advantages listed here. Now, these advantages are based on the type of environment you're in when you're crafting the item. So whether they're good or not really just depends on how prepared you are for the environment you are. And I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not a very big fan of this one, but we'll look over it real quick. Oh, and another thing before we actually start looking into these, the benefit, if it is not an immediate effect, which is to say that it wouldn't like instantly cure you or something, which I don't think any of these do, it lasts for a minute unless otherwise stated. Now, this does also count as an additive, so if you're an alchemist, you cannot use another additive with said item, just so you know. So if you're in an aquatic environment, you get +1 circumstance bonus on fortitude saves. Fine, but aquatic environments are one of the rarest that players ever go into, so not likely to happen. For Arctic, for Arctic and desert, because they mostly do the same thing, you treat the elemental or environmental effects for hot or cold cold or hot respectively as 1 degree less. This can be really good, but you're not often in these environments unless you've already prepped for the, extreme weather. So these are, again, very situational, but at least I can see these being helpful depending on the type of campaign you're in. Now, when you're in a forest, which is honestly going to be the most common kind of environment you'll probably find yourself in, you're going to get a +2 circumstance bonus to saves against disease and poison effects. Okay, and this does stack with the item bonus given to you by Anti-Plague and Anti-Venom. So that's okay, but again, not very, very common. Regardless, if you're going into a particularly poisoned area, I guess this is really good. Mountains, which is also a pretty common one, honestly, you get a +1 circumstance bonus to reflex saves, and honestly, this one is probably the best in the batch. You're going to be in mountains more often than you're going to be in the ocean or any kind of aquatic area, and reflex saves are also pretty common in the game, so honestly, mountains going to be your best shot. Plains give you access to a bonus to will saves. Plains are somewhat common as well, probably about as common as mountains. Will saves, you have to be going up against casters very typically, but I mean, it might even be like a fear effect, so could be beneficial. I'll say this one is almost as good as mountain and definitely better than a lot of the other ones. Swamp is really good because it removes, so no check required. It automatically removes a source of persistent bleed damage. This is absolutely amazing, and I think there's probably a good number of creatures in swamp-like areas that would inflict bleed. So this one I can see being really, really good when it comes up, and is probably it is the best one. I said mountain was, but I think this is the best one when the situation arises. And underground, you get a +1 circumstance bonus on perception checks. This is actually not that bad either. If you're ever in the Darklands, was what it's called, you can actually, a lot of creatures use stealth in the Darklands since it's an innately dark environment. So underground is also really not that bad. Overall, endemic herbs are okay. I don't like the additional batches used to get these effects because honestly, I don't think they're worth it. I would rather have two, minor potions of life rather than this, just because I don't know, the environmental one might be a thing but only works for an hour. I don't know, it's up to your best judgment. I would say if this was a skill feat, I think I would have liked it way more, because using an actual like even bonus archetype feat on this seems a little too much for my opinion, but I don't know, that's up for y'all to judge. All right, we're almost done with the Herbalist archetype dedication here. I did go a little bit longer than intended on the Endemic Herbs, but I feel like just mentioning it will help some people out know what situations they're useful for. But before we can continue on with the final feat here, I'm going to do what I always do. Like, follow, subscribe. I'm just going to drop a real quick one here. You can join our Discord. It's linked down in the description below. We have a very fast-growing community, and I'm doing my best to pump out really good Pathfinder 2e content as well. Rage of Elements is going to be coming out really soon, and this channel is going to be one of the ones that's going to be pumping out content like no other. So if you want to get a lot of the Rage of Elements stuff before anywhere else, I would subscribe. But let's get to the last feat here. Last up is Expert Herbalism, and this is an absolute must take if you are going through the Herbalist dedication, as what it does is it increases your advanced alchemy level to your level -3. So when you pick this one up, you'll have an item level of 3 that you can make, which is pretty good because a lot of items level up at odd intervals. So you would get a pretty substantial step in a lot of the items that you can craft during your daily preparations. You also gain the formulas for Elixir of Life as soon as your advanced alchemy level hits it. So you don't have to go out and find them, or you don't have to like break a potion down and learn the formula that way. You just automatically get them for Elixirs of Life, which is the premier, it's the health potion on the alchemist side. So this is definitely one of the ones that you absolutely need. It also goes through here on the list of when you get the higher ones. You don't really need to worry about that too much. Just know that it's only when your advanced alchemy level hits that level, not your current level. So you would get them 3 levels later than, say, an alchemist would. Which, makes sense. Makes alchemist not necessarily suck for healing. And alchemist is really good for healing. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that it doesn't take away the alchemist's job. In any case, the Herbalist dedication is a really good healing support-based archetype dedication. And honestly, this is one of the easiest to slot into a character, especially if you're using the free archetype rules. A fighter that is good with nature essentially becomes Aragorn from the Lord of the Rings, even though I know he's a ranger. But I'm just saying that, like, as a fighter, which is a very combat-orientated class, just investing in your nature and taking your archetype dedications for something not combat-related, your fighter suddenly goes from a really, really good combat character to a really, really good combat character who also can do some pretty substantial healing for the party. And I just think it's really good and something that most people should consider, especially if they're playing classes that are very much more on the combat-orientated side. Regardless, let me know if you guys have used the Herbalist dedication before and how you liked it, and let other people in the comments see how good this archetype dedication is. But that's going to be it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.